Welcome back, creators. So, a day prior to recording this, Project Shadow, a fan film that's sort of based on the lore that the movies have built up, has released. And I wanted to give my thoughts because in a very short amount of time, this project has become one of my favorite fan-created things in general, but also just fan-created films based on the Sonic series. And I just love how it took one of the best stories, aside from like Knuckles and his Echidna tribe. Another one of the great stories of the Sonic series is Shadow's origin story. How he was created, what life was like on the Space Colony Ark, how he always longed to go to Earth, and he made friends with Gerald's granddaughter, and they became like a family, and everything was great until they decided that, what is Gerald doing? Like, this doesn't exactly, like, this wasn't a part of our deal, and he's sort of doing something that goes against why we funded him in the first place. And so GUN sends soldiers up there, and they try to retrieve Project Shadow and arrest Gerald Robotnik and take his granddaughter away. They definitely didn't intend on killing her, but see, that's the thing. Everything gets so screwed up, everything goes wrong, and they have to fight for what they believe in. And Gerald has to save his granddaughter, which was a part of the deal, but GUN is kind of now just wanting to take what he's created and just get rid of him, which is a super screwed up thing to do. I also just love the aspect of like, Gerald is the type of guy who told this like large establishment what they wanted to hear so they would fund his project, but then he really had other plans in mind. And then they started getting worried, but he's like, no, trust me, bro. And they're like, no, we're gonna come take, all this stuff away from you and cancel this project. Like, it's a no-go. And he's like, no, I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing. And they're like, all right, we're gonna send some soldiers up there and shut you down. There's something just about that, like they're a family. Gerald really created a family up there on the Ark, and they were a set of characters that you were rooting for, as an audience. You're rooting for them to win because Shadow is pure, he's innocent, we need to protect him. He's this cute little creature, and yeah, he's filled with all these like chaos powers and all this stuff, but really he's just, he doesn't really know what's going on, he doesn't know what he's in for. And the moment in his eyes, the way he animated his face when he's reacting to Maria dying, it's like the horrors of humanity and what we're capable of is being unloaded onto him. And he's so overwhelmed. He doesn't know how to deal with it. And in that moment, you understand exactly why he goes on to be who he turns into. And revenge sounds and feels good to the audience because we're right there with him. Whereas in Adventure 2, it was just like, okay, well, I guess I can understand why. It's like, no, this you literally understand why. You're right there, right beside him as he's experiencing these things. And I also love how the film starts, too, where it starts with basically Shadow, I would assume, on the Golden Gate Bridge with all the cop cars beneath him. And he walks forward in that moonlight. It's just everything about this project was so good. And Shadow, who is beautifully portrayed. My only gripe is that the voice actor who played Shadow in the English version of this film didn't have the best mic, but that is not a huge problem because his performance, for me, was genuine. And he may have not sounded like my idea of what Shadow sounds like, but he did a fantastic job. I think all the voice actors and actresses did a great job in this film. The way the whole thing was handled, it was just so beautiful how he portrayed this more innocent side of Shadow that we knew existed, but we never got to see. And so that was emotional for me. It was like, oh yeah, this is probably how he started out. He didn't start out immediately being all bottled up and sort of like mysterious. He was very open and innocent and excited about his powers, and that's just so, it just makes everything hit harder. Because if you look at Shadow now, all these years later, he doesn't really think any of this is that cool that he has these powers. Like, he's so desensitized to it all. And going back to such an innocent place where Shadow is first born, it's just something, like I said, we did not get to see, not in Sonic Adventure 2, not in Shadow the Hedgehog, where they could have showed us something like that. It was always just hinted at in the games, and like we saw glimpses with flashbacks with like Dreamcast and GameCube models, right? But like, and with poor animation, no offense to the people who worked on those games, but compared to today's standards, like it's amazing to experience that as somebody who loves Shadow. Shadow is my favorite character. I think he's the most grounded character and relatable character in general. I think another thing that this film reminds me is that Shadow is still that innocent person. Shadow is still who he was before, but it's kept on the inside. It's bottled up. It's buried under layers of all these other things that he's experienced, all this trauma. And that's why, as a character, I know he's not just an asshole. You know, I think the Sonic Boom era really painted him as just this edgy asshole. And I feel like that's always where they go with his character in the modern day now, is that, well, we have nothing else to do with him, so now he's just like super dark and edgy, and we don't, you know, they don't really know what to do with him. And to some degree I get it, but as someone who's a huge fan of this character, I'm like, well, there's plenty more you can do. As we know from the Shadow the Hedgehog game, the true ending to that game was Shadow realizing nobody's gonna tell me who I am. I am who I am, and I don't need them to tell me. And he even throws away that photo of Gerald and Maria, and he puts all that behind him. And then during the events of Sonic 06, all of those things continue, and that character development moves forward, and he's helping humanity. He's working with Gun, G-U-N, and he's moving forward with his life and trying to do the right thing and you know, deciding who he is gonna be, right? And then when Mephiles tries to manipulate him as hard as he can to get him on his side, it doesn't work. Because Shadow has been through this before. With Black Doom, with Eggman, everyone's trying to tell Shadow who he is. Even Gerald was. You're a thing that's going to make humanity better. It's like, what does that even mean to something that was just created in a lab, you know? There's so much beauty in this story, and I think it's one of the best in the entire Sonic series in my personal opinion. This is my favorite. It's dark, it's grounded, and it's real, and it's emotional, and this film highlights all those things for me. And as I was watching it, it's funny, I realized the movie is not going to live up to this. I'm sorry, but it's just not. There is no way that the movie is going to do a better job than this fan film. And here we go again, the Sonic fans coming in to save the day and give us what we really want, right? And that has been a point of frustration for me in this franchise for the official content. It's just all this lack of understanding of the source material, writers who maybe don't really care as much as the fans do, which is strange to me, because how cool would it be to actually get to work on one of these things? And there's a responsibility there. Like, I would give it my 100% all, and I feel like some of these writers, especially in the past 10 years, have just been doing such a disservice to this franchise. So I don't know. It's projects like this that remind me we're still not there yet. Like Frontiers was great, sure, but we're not there yet. They have yet to tell another great story like this. It's like all the great stories were at the beginning, and now it's just whatever works, throw it at the wall, and just wherever we can go. Cyberspace, sure, it gives us an excuse to use old levels, sure. It's just everything is losing it a little bit for me. And Frontiers is great, don't get me wrong, it's the best game we've had in a long time, best story we've had in a long time, and it's a step in the right direction, but I'm ready for some real, like, let's continue on those steps in the right direction kind of feeling, because next year, seemingly, it's going to be the year of Shadow, where we get a Sonic and Shadow game. It's been rumored, I don't know if it's real, but Shadow's going to appear very soon, and it would make sense for the next game they're going to release at the end of next year that it would be something Shadow related, because the movie's coming out and Shadow's going to be a big character. Literally the photo they're using to tease the movie, the actual movie, is Shadow himself. So it is strange. I don't really know what their plan is, but what I do know is that, getting back to the topic at hand here, this movie, or maybe I should say short film, was so sweet, yet so emotional, so genuine, so pure. It didn't waste time trying to shove a bunch of jokes in there. You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of video game adaptation to movie or comic books being adapted to film, they all miss the point. You know, it's not about, oh, let's just throw in a bunch of jokes and make it entertaining and just explain the bare minimum of things and not really care. It's like, just be genuine, respect the material, that you're basing your version of this story off of, you know what I mean? And don't feel like you need to tell a bunch of jokes to make it entertaining. It doesn't make it entertaining, it waters it down. Because every time something gets serious, there's a joke. Or there's a funny dance scene, or there's a musical number, or there's something stupid going on in every one of these adaptations. It's just like, can we just stay grounded and just really tell the story of what this is without trying to interject with something? Like, I don't know, this was such a breath of fresh air from all the MCU stuff lately, and I know everyone shits on the MCU, but this is just a reminder of like, you can be genuine and sincere when you're telling a story. I want to talk about the way that the final scene was handled, where Maria is killed, Shadow witnesses this, and is deployed in that capsule on course for Earth. There is something about the way it was shot and animated that was exquisite. I don't know how else to put it into words. It struck to my core, and I immediately started crying. I was very emotional. I'm not embarrassed to admit that at all, because you know what? This was genuinely put together, and it was thoughtfully made, and there was a lot of emotion and passion put into this project, and you can feel it when you watch it. And so I'm proud that this was able to make me emotional. Most things that are based on comics and video games nowadays that are made officially don't do that. They may get a chuckle out of you, they may entertain you, but it's flat. They don't do anything more than just that, you know what I mean? They don't dare to take anything seriously because, oh, that would just be weird. When there's nothing weird about it, there's nothing to be ashamed of. But you can tell Hollywood is ashamed of the Sonic movies, but they're making them because they make money and because it helps the brand for the Sonic series, you know? And it's a shame because there's a lot of great stories to tell here. And if you were more sincere, you could tell those stories in a much cleaner and clearer way that would honestly make even more money, because people would say, wow, this is actually genuinely a really good movie before anything else, right? And I'm not saying that this fan film is perfect. I mean, it's like I said, you know, it's on a low budget. Some of the microphones sound a little poor, but it's like, it's not about that. Look at what it's doing. And visually, it looks like official, like it looks like a movie. So, I mean, everyone who worked on this should get all the praise. Mike Pollock even had a role in it, which was really cool. And I feel like when the movie comes out, the official one, people are going to be comparing it to this one. And they're going to say, why wasn't the official movie this good? I guarantee you that's what's going to happen. And I already know in the movie they're going to make a bunch of cringy jokes like, oh, Shadow, you're so edgy. What's wrong with you, buddy? You know, like I already know that that's coming. And it really just upsets me because I'm really sick and tired of fantasy stories not being taken seriously because it's fantasy. Like, what is going on in Hollywood? I don't know. Maybe these writers are just out of touch. I don't know. Maybe they're being forced to include certain things. I don't know. But I'm tired of it. That's the beauty of making fan projects, is that we get to take things that are beloved to us, that have a personal meaning to us, and we get to show people what we see in it, what stands out to us, what we love about it, and what we want to see. And man, this is one of those stories that I always wanted to see done in like a really professional way, and this is it. So if you are a fan of this series, or even just the movies, watch this. Because I guarantee you, it's better than whatever the hell we're gonna get come 2024, whatever it was, holiday. I'm so bummed out for the movie now. I'm going in with the absolutely lowest of expectations, because if they butcher Shadow on the silver screen in an official way and just make him a joke, I will walk out of the theater, because this character actually means something to me, and it pisses me off that just this franchise continuously is just a joke to people when there are really good stories here, there is real potential here, and they just decided to make an MCU version of the Sonic series where it starts out really great and then everything's just a joke. You know, at least the way the MCU is nowadays, you know, it's just that typical Hollywood writing where it's just, you know, not focusing on the beautiful story they have in front of them. And you can always tell when like a director really cares and really doesn't, or they have someone else's hand so far up their ass that they can't make any decision to better the film, and it's just gonna be a carbon copy of what all the other films are, which is literally what's going on with the MCU, or at least was for this Phase 4. So with that out of the way, there is something else I wanted to add about the moment at the end of the film where Maria dies and Shadow witnesses it and is just thrown out into space. Something I noticed was that artistically, what was going on visually really aligned with what was going on emotionally. The way everything went black and white, but the red was still there, like in Shadow's quills and, you know, in his design, and his eyes, of course. The scene would have worked without that, but I don't know why that just made it so much more impactful, and it's one of those weird visual things I can't even really describe why the scene is more effective with that visual effect. Again, I don't know what it is about that made it more impactful. It almost shouldn't make sense. I think that's all I want to say. I just had to gush about it and also just rant about how we can't have anything this good anymore these days, it seems. Like, the days of a man with a vision, like Sam Raimi, for example. He had a vision. He was passionate about Spider-Man. Everyone who worked with him knew that. And he got to make a set of films. And honestly, the reason 3 wasn't even that good was because of the higher-up executives telling him he had to do certain things, right? No matter how you look at it, I mean, he still did his best and ended up making a good movie. I still love Spider-Man 3, but the pure intention of that first Spider-Man film, the pure passion and energy that he had for it that you can feel when you watch that movie, that's what I felt here, I swear. And it's from a fan film, and it's like, why can't we have this on an official level? Why can't we have this in the theaters? I don't know what it is that we can't take things seriously anymore. You know, we can't be sincere with our storytelling. It just boggles my mind. But anyway, I'm gonna leave it at that before this video goes on and on about me gushing but also complaining about things. I just loved this. Please go check it out if you haven't. You don't want to miss being a part of Sonic fan film history, if you will. You don't want to miss this one. This one is honestly the best one I've ever seen. The animation is literally on par with something you would see in a Sonic movie, so go check it out. I think it's everything you want it to be. At least it was for me. I'll see you in the next video, creators. Peace out.